What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is part of a series where I focus on Academy Award Best Picture nominees from a certain year and then rank them from worst to best. Done such years in the past, such as 2000, 2022, and then currently I'm working my way through the 1990s. I've done 1990, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, and you guessed it because you clicked on this video. This time around, I'm doing the Academy Award Best Picture nominees of 1997 and ranking them from worst to best. Now, there were 5 Best Picture nominees this year, so I'll be ranking them from 5 being the worst to 1 being the best, and of course, my humble opinion. And that being said, I will be very curious to hear your guys' ranking down below in the comment section. But guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. So, kicking things off, number 5, we have As Good as It Gets. So this is an okay to solidish type movie. It's very well acted. It's charming. It has its heart in the right place, but I do feel as though there are certain elements to this movie that just haven't really aged that well, and at times it does feel like a sitcom. I haven't really had an urge to revisit this movie, so it might be a one-and-done type movie, or I might revisit it again down the line, but as it stands, I just look at it and I say, yeah, it's very well acted. It does have its moments for sure, but ultimately, it's not really something that really stuck the landing with me completely, and I can see why some people might have it higher up on their list, but for me, it's just all right. That's why it's my number 5. Next up, my number 4, we have The Full Monty. So The Full Monty has an intriguing premise, and I do have to say that I do think that it does a solid job in terms of what they're going for. And I do think that the comedy does work at times. I do like the performances. I like it a little bit more as good as it gets. But it still has some things for me that are kind of missing where it's like, oh, wow, this is like really, really good. Like the filmmaking itself, it's not bad, of course. It's not even just okay. It's more like solidish, but it's something that does kind of hold the movie back, I think, because when I think about the actual filmmaking, nothing really sticks out. It's more of the acting, the characters, those aspects that do. But it's definitely a charming movie, and I do think that it is solidly made overall, and that's why, for me, The Full Monty, I have as my number 4. But that being said, I can see why some people might have it higher up on their list. Speaking of higher up on their list, my number 3 is a movie that it's going to vary. I already know this. My number 3, there are going to be people that have this as their number 1, but then there are also going to be people that have it as their number 5. It's going to be similarly to like Forrest Gump, where there's just such a interesting love-hate type dynamic on the internet with this movie. But without further ado, my number 3, we have Titanic. So Titanic I saw for the first time in, I believe it was early 2014, and I thought it was solid, but I had so many issues with it, but I couldn't help but want to revisit it. I think it was 2019 was when I revisited it, and I liked it so much on second viewing that I actually bought it on Blu-ray, and then I saw it a third time, and I liked it even more. It's a movie that I think it's really, really interesting how over the course of time, my relationship changed quite a bit with this movie. I love the filmmaking. I think the filmmaking is outstanding. I love the cinematography, the production design, the attention to detail is just outstanding. James Horner's score, the acting, I really especially like Kate Winslet. I think she did a really, really good job. Other thing about this movie is that I like how you have 2 halves of this movie. You have the first half where it's, the build up to the drama and everything, and the second half is pretty much a disaster movie. And I do think the 2 halves mesh well. And I think that this movie overall, I can see why some people might not like it. And again, this is a similar situation where, as I mentioned earlier, I know that it won Best Picture, and I know that a lot of people aren't happy about that. And I have to say, although I would have given it to something else, clearly, because this is my number 3, I do think that it's still a very, very well put together film, and I can definitely see why some people have this as their number 1. I can. I can see the hate, as well, but at the same time, I don't really disagree with the hate anymore. I don't. I like this film overall. I do think that it is quite good, and yeah, screw it. It's my number 3. So yeah, Titanic was my number 3. Next up, my number 2, we have Good Will Hunting. I love Good Will Hunting. I think that it is a great, great drama. You really, really care about these characters. The chemistry between Matt Damon and Robin Williams is just palpable. Robin Williams in particular does such a great job in terms of his supporting role. Love the score. Danny Elfman gives one of his best scores. Love the cinematography. It's very naturalistic feeling, but at the same time, they know when to, pull in and pull out in terms of the camera work. And then also another thing is that the emotional beats of this movie work wonders. I think the character development is one of the best suits of this film, but it helps also that the filmmaking is top notch. Definitely can see why this was a huge hit in 1997, and I think that it's aged quite well. Almost forgot to mention the humor of the film. Really, really good. Blends comedy and drama seamlessly, and it's got an ending that is just outstanding. I love Good Will Hunting, and yeah, that's why it's my number 2. Next up, my number 1. I don't know how many people are going to have this as their number 1. I reckon it's not going to be too many because I do know it's a very dark, seedy movie. But I mean, I love this type of movies. What can I say? My number 1 is LA Confidential. Man, I love LA Confidential. It is a masterpiece. It is incredible how great this cast is. But not only just the cast, but the storytelling is so strong. It's so dense to the point of where you have to rewatch it multiple times. And each viewing, you're picking up more and more details because there is just so much that is in this film. And I love that. I think that it really does help with the rewatchability value. But it's not even just the rewatchability value of the story being, so dense. It's that this is a very entertaining film. It is able to blend together seedy characters, and these morally complex themes and messages, whilst at the same time giving you a film that essentially blends so many different genres. It's a neo-noir, it's an action film, it's a romance, it's a drama, it's a police procedural film. It does so much. Crime, there's so much in this. So it's one of those films that there's something for everyone, but at the same time, I do think that because of the dark nature of the film, I can see why some people might not like it necessarily. Although, being dark, I will say this. If you weren't necessarily a fan of Chinatown, which I gotta say, I love Chinatown. I think that Chinatown is slightly better than LA Confidential. They're both masterpieces in my eyes. But if you thought Chinatown was too grim and too, brutal, not brutal, but, sad and everything, I will say that LA Confidential's ending does end on a more, upbeat note, so there's that. But overall, LA Confidential, it's an outstanding film. I love it. That's why I have it as my number 1. But yeah, guys, I try to talk about the Best Picture nominees usually at the end of these videos, for if they were good that year or not, in my opinion. And 1997, I will say overall was quite strong. I would say that 1 to 3, I think, definitely deserved to be nominated. I would say 4 and 5 could do without. I think also, I'm saying I could do without because in the back of my mind, I always think that Boogie Nights got a Best Picture nomination, but it didn't. I always have to deal with the fact that that film only got nominated for 3 Oscars. And I think that Boogie Nights should have gotten a Best Picture nomination, but it didn't. And I 100% would have given it a nomination over As Good as It Gets and The Full Monty. It's just my personal opinion, but I love Boogie Nights. But overall, it was a good year for Best Picture nominees. And I do think that seeing the love for those 3 that I mentioned, like Titanic, Good Will Hunting, and LA Confidential, get spread over the Oscars, it's pretty awesome. Even though I do think that LA Confidential should have won Best Picture, but it makes sense why it didn't. But overall, guys, that is my ranking for the 1997 Academy Award Best Picture nominees. Let me know your ranking in the comment section down below. And as always, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, follow me down on Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.